Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. Please join us over at rivianstories.com for all the latest Rivian news. Maybe pick up yourself a t-shirt while you're there. Thanks. All right, we got to come back to that. Because what I'd want to end on now in our last few minutes together is just talk about service. And I just kind of want to set it up in general terms as far as good, bad, and ugly of service. We've all had our R1s in for service at least once, perhaps multiple times between us all. Yes, multiple times. And let's start off with the ugly. When I say the word ugly and Rivian service, do you guys have any kind of stories or even feelings, inklings of that personally? Have you had that yet? Anything ugly or not?
Yeah, nothing in the ugly column, I don't think.
Yeah. Anything for you, Skylar?
No, definitely nothing ugly.
Yeah. I don't really think that I would have anything ugly either. If I was going to put something in ugly, because I know what I'd put in bad for me, but would be like one thing that I had worked on last time was, all the clickies that come with it, which is pretty common. And they did go away for a little bit, but I swear 2-3 weeks later, they're already starting to clickety clack again. So I'd put that in the ugly category, like was fixed, but it's ugly, it's back. Um, so anything as far as summary statements on behalf of the community that we could say is ugly?
Yeah, so the amount of time between submitting a service ticket to then having your service appointment scheduled in some places is up to June already, before people are going to be seen
Oof.
in that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty.
I
That's
mean,
ugly.
if it's something minor, I get it, but if but even then, I mean, June, you're talking 4 months from now, that someone's gonna have to deal with something that might get on their last nerve, whether it is a click or
Mm-hmm.
wind noise, or one of the most recent ones I saw was a cut line on the rear wiper, the washer fluid hose. It actually runs up the A-pillar
Mm-hmm.
on the passenger side. And when this individual actuated the washer fluid, it was squirting inside the A-pillar in the cabin of the
Oh
vehicle.
man.
I don't know how quickly they're going to be able to get in.
Well, I was gonna
Um,
say, is there like a triage system to where if there's something pretty critical, you're not waiting till June, hopefully?
right. I would
Yeah.
I would assume so. And then, I think that, like, I'll kind of segue my point into this. If other R1 owners are out there and you've got issues, don't create a list on your phone or on a notepad or whatever. Like, get those issues in a service ticket and get them submitted as soon as possible.
Mm.
Um, you're not only going to do yourself a favor, but you're going to do Rivian a favor when it comes to making sure that they have parts and everything that they need in order to get your R1 back to 100%.
Yeah, and I will tell you the ugliest that I have seen or heard about, and I'm gonna say it's ugly because it is. It's also not an isolated incident. So for people that did not get the steel underbody protection, there has been loose or missing fasteners and literally driving through puddles or just driving down the road, part of the underbody, the composite protection for the battery comes off, breaks off. And
Mm.
that's dangerous for that vehicle and that driver. But in my opinion, a big chunk of composite material comes off of a vehicle. That's a danger to other drivers on the road as well. So that's not an ugly for me, but that is definitely something that I would put in the ugly category.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oof, man. Let's move on. Jeez. Um, so how about like the bad category? And we didn't decipher the difference between ugly and bad. I'm just going with gut instincts here. But so anything bad personally that have come from your times that you've had your trucks in?
Yeah. So back in early January, I had service on the truck. I took it down there, dropped it off. I had the cracked heater box, so Nikki and I were working or washing the truck. Nikki was vacuuming in the inside. She noticed the floorboards, the driver's side floorboard of the truck was soaking wet. So I actually had a service appointment 2 days later. Got the truck in. They were gracious enough to give me a loaner. We had a camping trip down in Sarasota planned for the Friday following, or Friday of the next week. We were getting very close to having to take the loaner on the camping trip, and per Rivian, one, the loaner agreement disappears. That link times out after a certain amount of time. So you can't see like the fine print on what you can and can't do with said loaner unless you screenshot it. So I reached out to the service center and I said, "Hey, I'm not trying to rush you guys, but I've got a camping trip coming up on Friday for my wife's birthday. We're going to be doing some kayaking and some camping. And if I don't get my truck back, can I camp with it? And can I tow my 170 something pound kayak trailer with a couple of kayaks on it? And you cannot adventure in a loaner adventure vehicle per Rivian." I
That is
immediately,
interesting
I
and good to know.
yeah, I immediately sent a very wordy email to my guide, our guide, and we'll see what happens. But the fact that I have an adventure vehicle that I adventure with, and I'm giving a loaner that is also an adventure vehicle, I should be able to at least drive. Like, I'm going to a state park. I'm not bombing Moab.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I should be able to continue my adventure while my truck is at the service center for 9 days.
Yeah, true.
That's my bad.
Skylar just would have adventured.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, looking back, maybe I just shouldn't have asked, right? Especially since you're just doing light duty adventure, no crawling or crazy.
And yeah, a state park is not off road. And I can understand Rivian taking that position because, yeah, I think everybody has a rental car story about doing something in a rental car that you absolutely would not have done in your own, right? So,
Valid.
or somebody that's done that.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
me, I just know people.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm going to jump in with a bad real quick to keep this one going, then we'll get to good and then we'll land this particular recording. But the one thing that I'd categorize as bad, and I realize that this could be a part of the early adopter tax that we've talked about on this show before, meaning that there's a lot of goals that Rivian has for how they want to run service or charging or membership programs, you name it, like so on, that aren't yet there. And to me, where that hit me was getting in for my second service call, which had to be at Rivian, so normal, which thankfully is only 65, 70 miles away, 72 maybe, I don't know. It's like an hour and 10 minutes from my home. And I had to get it there, and I can only do that before school. Thankfully, you can get it there at as early as 7:30, but in order for me to get to work and all that, it was just more of a pain than what I was anticipating compared to getting service for my old ICE cars. You know what I mean? Where you just kind of drop it off in town and get a loaner or whatever. Since it's close, you just kind of get dropped off to work by your wife or whatever and pick it up later that day. Because all this was like a tire rotation, the clicks, and tightening up the grab handle, so just a few minor things. And so because of that, well, for one, it was like 2 weeks was the earliest they could get it in, which isn't June, thankfully. So this is back in January, But then I had to delay a little bit just because I was trying to find a morning where I didn't need to be around for the kids to get them to school, like get a ride for them, and to where I could just be to work on time, and it was just kind of like a pain. And in the context of it all, I'm not acting like it's the biggest pain, but it is something that came up in conversation with someone who's set to take their R1S sometime in the next few weeks. He has a Tesla, and he was asking about service, and I'm like, yeah, you just got to be ready to take it to Bloomington for quite a few things, and right now they're not just picking it up for you. And so that's what I meant by like the early attacks. Like at the beginning, that's the whole idea, is that if it needs to go into the shop, they'll bring you a loaner, drop it in your driveway, take yours back. But they're clearly not there. And man, it just doesn't feel like they'll ever get there at this point. I hope they do. I mean, that would be way better. But then don't forget that you also then have to get back there. So for me, by the time I'm going to go drop it off and talk to someone for 15 minutes minimum and get back is like 3 hours, as far as a round trip. And then if I have to do that again that day, it's like, that's 6 hours in a day or 6 hours in a couple days. And with my current schedule of work and kids, it was just either a little ugly or a little bad. One of those, you know what I mean? Fact of life. But yeah, first world problems maybe is the better way to say that. But yeah, that's really my only personal complaint so far, is just the logistics of service is still not what I'm used to dropping it off in town.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I agree with that. And I'm also going to piggyback on, the point that Jimmy brought up earlier. I had a couple very minor things and, submitted a ticket, got a call back quickly from the Rivian Service call center, I guess. And, they were lickety split and they're like, okay, yeah, well, we can, get you an appointment. And I was thinking like a week or two out, but no, it was a month or, 5 weeks, something like that. I was like, wow, the appointments are already that far out already. And I honestly think that there are some early adopter issues that are common issues across, a lot of the vehicles that have been produced so far. So they're dealing with a high volume of that. But the other thing is the service centers are the ones that receive and do all the pre-delivery inspections and, make the vehicles ready and do the deliveries as well.
Yep.
I think the service centers are just extremely busy across the board. And I'm very curious to see how that's going to scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my final piece to that, and it's kind of in Rivian's defense, based off of your comment, Kyle, is the reason that dropping off the passport was so easy. It was because in Springfield alone, there's probably 14 Honda dealerships.
Yeah, even that's a small
what I'm
town.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
They've had, I'm exaggerating the number. I don't know how many Honda dealerships they have, but
Yeah.
it took, just like gas stations and just like car dealerships, they've been around for 100 years, to the point that I've got, I think 5 or 6 Nissan dealerships just within like 10 miles of where I live right now. So, I mean, there's, what I'm saying? I mean, there's just like, again, the early adopter tax, but
Yep.
everybody else has had so much so much of a head start, and we've all gotten used to the convenience of it. I mean, my service center's 2.5 hours away,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
know there's one coming to Jacksonville, which is going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all just going to have to give it time, and I think that's probably my good. Is we know as long as Rivian keeps doing what they're going to do, and they can scale, if they can scale as quickly as we would love to see them scale, the good is that these wait times are going to get better. There's going to be more service centers throughout the areas where they have a large number of R1s. As long as they can get that data from customers, obviously they know where everybody lives. I mean, they should have all that data to be able to put them where they need them. It's only going to it will get better.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's what I was going to say as far as good too. I think that I'll start off with the firsthand experience, which is that I've only had 2 service tickets, like where, 2 times where I've gotten service multiple little things per. And the first time they just did it in my driveway and it was awesome. I mean, it took like 20 minutes or 30. It was all for small stuff. It was the air compressor, moving that little out. Um, I don't know, a couple other small things. And, they were there and they were gone. And to lead that in, like that is the vision for most repairs, is that it's going to 80% hopefully repairs will just happen in your driveway, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then a great vision still for that extra 20% that's not there, which is eventually having the network built out to drop something off for you and take yours back to service center. So you don't have to schedule that 3-hour round trip, or in Jimmy's case, 5 hours. Jiminy Christmas. Yeah, I mean, that's PTO in my world now, paid time off. Geez, just to get your car in. I mean, that's bad or ugly, for sure. But the other thing that I was thinking of as far as good is my second one. I was lucky enough to get a loaner, and it was a freaking ocean coast interior, glacier white R1T on 22s. So the same wheels that I drive on my R1S. And I'll have to write that one down too. Like and subscribe, because I will tell you definitively my driving feedback between the R1T and the R1S, and I won't say anything different than what people have said already, as far as what's interesting is maybe I could give a little bit more insight. My preview will be that yes, the R1T was noticeably like right away smoother with the bumps. But I was still ready to get back into my R1S to drive it. Oh, that'll be the cliffhanger. I'll tell you why, maybe, So the other thing I would like to talk about when I'm back is Ocean Coast and what it's like to come back to Black Mountain. So there's another cliffhanger I'll leave with you.
Ooh, interesting.
Yep. And
See,
even some kid feedback with that.
I want to hear that now, but that's okay. I'll tell you this. I've got 3 things that I will put solidly in the good category, if not great or excellent. So, number 1 is mobile service. Mobile service is incredible. I had one minor issue.
Yeah.
It was so cool to not have to take it anywhere, to be fixed, in the driveway within a matter of minutes was, you cannot beat that. So the sooner that Rivian can get to more of that, the better. Number 2, it is easy to open support tickets, service tickets, whatever you want to call them. You can do it through the app. You can do it on the phone. They're quick to get back to you and answer questions, which is incredible. That's so much better than dealing with a traditional dealership. And my third thing is the people in the service call center, the people at the service center, knowledgeable, cool, friendly. Like, I have had the best experience with Rivian's people, which is also night and day from past experiences with traditional car dealerships.
Yeah.
Great call. And I was going to say something about like the people have been great. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, Skylar. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, that's all for this one. We have more coming, so please subscribe. In the meantime, we hang out at rivianstories.com. Click on shop, find yourself a t-shirt. Thanks so much for your support.